kind of hospitable personality. I think they're the best, and that's why I would like you to invite other nationalities to come to your Cursillo, because everybody I know who has interacted with Filipinos, you know, in that kind of a context says, man, I never knew, especially if they're not Filipino, they're black, they're Mexican, or they're white, I never knew Filipinos could be so much fun, so kind, so generous, so charitable. And I say, well, that's only part of it. Because we are, you know, we are, but we have a great sensitivity. We have such a thin skin, you know? It's terrible. I mean, that's the great temptation for Filipinos. We can be really close to God, but heaven forbid anybody cross us. Because then it's like, whoa, that rage starts to build up, that indignation, you know, we start telling all our friends about what that person did over there. You know, it just spirals out of control. And that's really a sin. You have to know that, okay? That is a great sin. It happens to be maybe genetic. Who knows? You know, things that happen in terms of our behavior or the way we think, many times it's kind of programmed into our DNA by virtue of long evolution. Maybe we had to be that way to be a village people, you know? Filipinos, you know, in the islands are all villagers, they're clannish, you know, they survive by relying on one another. But obviously, if you're going to have somebody in your clan, in your village, who does something wrong that hurts you, you need to kick that person out so you can survive, right? So over centuries of evolution, we've developed that, you know? Thin skin. Yeah, we can be nice and pleasant because we want everyone to get along, but boy, don't you cross me. And so we need to overcome that with God's grace. We have to understand that that is a great failing. That is a supremely great failing in our spiritual life if we don't get a hold of that and expunge it, eliminate that from our minds. A judgmental attitude, an unforgiving attitude, a grudge-bearing attitude, a gossiping attitude. Oh, very sinful. You will never get to heaven with that. You know, honestly. You know, God might be forgiving, but he might say, I can't take the chance. If I let you in, you know, you might cause some real problems over here. Okay, so, eliminating sin. That's obvious. You're all laughing nervously, because you know it's true. You know it's true. Okay, so, eliminating that sin of pride, of haughtiness, of grudge-bearing, gossiping, you know, whatever, envy. Get that out of your life. Then you know that you're making progress. Okay? So many times when I do spiritual direction, when people will come to me and they're really talking about other people all the time. You know what? I'll let them talk. I do this all the time. So I tell you my technique. I let you talk all you want. And then after a while, when you're all done, you're tired, I say, you know what? You know what the real problem is? You! You! It's like, me! It's you! You need to get a grip, you know, on the reality that you are not God. You know? You are not God. God is God, and you are just one of his servants. And if God has called you to be in the Cursillo, he expects a lot more of you than this. You know? This is unacceptable. I'm not talking to you. I maintain discretion. Why did you do that? So it's important to recognize that that can really be a problem. Next, having a more peaceful life with family and friends and coworkers. That's a natural outshoot of eliminating sin, you know, from your life, sinful attitudes. Everything else becomes kind of peaceful. Because so many times what we perceive to be problems around us are nothing more than a psychological projection of our own issues on other people. You know, the way in which we view the world is very much conditioned by how we feel. And reality can sometimes be much more benign. You know, people aren't always thinking about you. You know, they're not always talking about you. They're not always trying to make your life hard. They probably don't even know you exist. You know? Thus, when you realize, in the grand scheme of things, that the only thing important in life is, you know, our relationship, loving the relationship with God and other people, and trying to be kind to everybody, life becomes very smooth. And you actually help other people to get rid of their own sinfulness. Okay, next. Commitment to piety action. So on your service sheet, you list out all the things that you're going to do in terms of piety, right? So all those things you start to do on a more regular basis. You're able to pray and take time, like I said, 15 minutes a day to have conversation with God. You're taking time to visit the Blessed Sacrament, and it doesn't seem like an imposition. It's something that you really want to do. Okay? And then, Christ-centered evangelization. Well, what is that contrasted to? Well, I don't want you to come to the Cursillo, because I have a quota. No. Let me tell you about my best friend, Jesus, and how I found Jesus during this wonderful weekend. I think everybody should go, and maybe you might want to think about that. Maybe, God can really touch you the way that he touched me. So, Christ-centered, it's not about us trying to accomplish anything in particular. It's about trying to reveal to our acquaintances, our coworkers, our friends, our family, our best friend. Next. Allocation of our free time, our thoughts, and our money, going more towards Christ-centered activity. Now, during this economic crisis where, so many people are having foreclosures and all of that, I have to honestly tell you that it was such a godsend for me to go to my Cursillo 30 years ago, because from that point on, I began to focus my free time, my thoughts, my money, to the kinds of things that I thought would help me and other people in their spiritual growth. And so when that began to happen, I noticed that my desire to spend money on stuff for me began to wither. It began to just dry up. I really didn't need stuff. I felt, gee, I have already everything I need. I got a loving wife, I've got a job, we have this house that we're making payments on. And what happened as a result of that, very pragmatically speaking, is we saved up lots of money because we weren't spending very much. The money that I did spend was on things that were church-related. I was a choir director for 11 years, and I bought all the music books. And we hosted these meetings in our home for 11 years, and every Friday night, and bought all the food, just like Sister Corey over here, and just, donated tons of money. You didn't donate it? I'm kidding. So anyway, all of our resources, our free time went towards these kind of church things. So was I, spending a lot of money on entertainment or dining out or going on trips to Europe or whatever? No. Consequently, I think it was just like maybe 15 years after we bought our house, we were able to pay the whole thing off because we had some money saved up from living well under our means because we had no desires to spend. Not that we were cheap. We just realized that why do we need to spend money? Why do we need to buy stuff? Like I was talking about yesterday, why do we need to accumulate stuff? And so there is actually a very, very good financial benefit that you will see as you turn yourself more and more over to Christ. You're not going to be swayed by advertising, by social pressure to kind of fit in like everybody else does in terms of material things, like how you look, or what kind of car you drive, or where you live, or what kind of house you have. None of that means anything to you. It really doesn't. And you actually end up, when you're working, just saving a ton of money, okay? So that you can actually, have a pretty good life, regardless of, what happens in the greater economy. So, these are the evidence of spiritual growth. These are the kinds of things that will help you know if you're on track. And if you find that some things are a little bit harder than others, then that's the time to go see your spiritual director. Say, can you help me out with this? I seem to be stuck here. Or I seem to be stuck here. I seem to always be buying stuff. Looking for that 4-letter word, sale. Okay. Any questions? Yes?
Will you just define gossip?
Will I define gossip?
Yes.
It's like talking about somebody else's business that is none of your business. Yeah. Like if you're in a group reunion where instead of talking about PSA, all you're doing is talking about other people. Sometimes I've seen groups that do that. They've been together a long time, It's like they already know each other so well, all they can do now is talk about other people. You need to go to another group. Your group is expanded, it has already outlived its usefulness. Okay? You need to be in a new group where you can be inspired with new people and have a fresh start. What is that game that people like to play with the dice? Mahjong? Yeah, it's like, people ask me, is it a sin to play mahjong? I say, well, it's not so much the sin to play mahjong or to play poker and all of that. It's what you do while you're doing that. And usually you're talking, about other people. And, it's kind of like a waste of time. And remember, I said time is like the most valuable, finite resource that God gives you. So why would you waste time doing that? It produces nothing. Okay?
There are some people who do not feel guilty as long as they are telling the truth, they say. But when you talk about other people, lack of love, lack of understanding.
Lack of charity.
Lack of charity.
Lack of charity. Well, just always put yourself in the other person's shoes. How would you feel if people knew your dirty laundry? Because everybody has some dirt, right? I said that before. You dig deep enough, you'll find some dirt on some people. And what if other people, found that dirt and they just talked about it and said, well, what's the problem? It's the truth, isn't it? No? That's why we always do unto others as we would have them do unto us. Okay? And that's why, really, don't gossip. One of the things that I think really shows in my workplace that I'm a Christian and everybody recognizes is I never talk about other people. I never talk about my other employees other than in a professional way about the work that we have to do. I do not talk one word about other people's activities or their problems, even though they come to me and they talk to me about that. I hear them talking among each other about how they're mad at so-and-so or whatever. I never engage in that stuff. I just let them know I'm above that. If you need to talk about that, that's fine, but that's not anything that I need to do. And so if you can do that also, you keep yourself pure, and you keep yourself available to the grace of God that's always trying to fortify you so that you can give an even more authentic witness to others. Okay, so just remember that there's absolutely nothing to be gained by gossip. It is very sinful in God's eyes. Okay. Any other questions? All good? Okay, thank you. Yes? Everything is in a context, so you have to provide a context for that.
Okay, let's say you have a family member that is hurting himself or herself and the whole bit, and once they'll ask you for help with those things, second time the more you help them, it looks like they're hurting themselves. So where does self-love fit in?
Well, context. In what way are they hurting themselves?
Chemical dependency, or it could be codependency, I don't know, one of the other.
In other words, they're some kind of drug addict.
Yes.
Okay. Well, obviously that's not something that you want to condone, because there's nothing good that can come out of that.
But when you see that person hurting, oh, there's goodness, or when they turn around and say, oh, I'm good now with all of those things, and then they turn around and then they'll do it again. A few months later, the whole thing.
What are they asking of you?
Well, it could be money, or it could be, I did this on my weekend stuff anyway. So he's like, my ex said, I told him that he could stay at my house as long as he's clean and sober. Okay, so when he's not clean and sober, I keep him out of the house. And then 6 months later, he'll come home and say, oh, I am clean and sober. I need a home stay. And then here comes all of the things between the lines and everything else. I mean, and then through the eyes of his family, I was horrible wife for not letting him back. So where does that self-love stand?
Well, first of all, you said he's your ex-husband?
Yes. He is my ex-husband now.
What you do is you just make a fresh new start. You never let him
No,
back.
but at that time it was my husband.
Oh, you okay. Talking about the sweetheart. Well, we make a marriage vow in good times and bad times, richer or poorer. And so it is a tough situation when you find your spouse has gotten involved in something that's very bad for him or her. and can also affect the health and the well-being of the family. And so what you have to do is kind of weigh, what are the pros and cons of doing any particular action. And, I'm a firm believer in just saying, this is what it has to be, and it's got to be this way. You have to make a commitment. You have to make a commitment to do the right thing, and I'll help you. But if, for whatever reason, I lay it out there, initially, right off the bat, if you cannot adhere to what I've already told you need to do, you're going to have to find some other avenue for help. I will help you this time. I will give you all the coaching, encouragement, find the resources you need to get help in whatever sickness you might have. But if you willfully choose to go against that, then you're going to have to find some other avenue, because I'm not the person to help you. And then, because you've laid it out, and then you're also, invoking, God and praying with that person, and you're trying to marshal all the community resources and professional resources you can to address the problem. God will bless you, with the strength and fortitude to do the right thing. And it's always up to the other individual to respond appropriately. God gives all of us free will. He gives all of us free will. He doesn't give us all the ability to solve every single problem on the face of the planet. So we help to the very best of our ability, acknowledging what our limitations are, and we let other people know, and this is the extent of what I can do for you. And that's it. That makes it sound serious enough that the other person realizes that, if I'm really sincere and not just trying to manipulate another person, I'm going to make the necessary changes. If they're not sincere, and they allow themselves to fall back into old habits, then they really need to seek another source of support. Because in a case like that, I would be incapable of helping. I might only be an enabler. I might only be forestalling the inevitable, which is the person needs to get out. Okay? So I'm always ready to help. But I always lay out firsthand, this is what needs to be done. And if you're really sincere, you can go this. But don't embark on this with me unless you're really sincere, because you'll only get to try it once. Any other questions? All good? Okay. Thank you very much.